Welcome to the Lulu Hour, everybody. We're changing things up a little bit. Bree is taking a seat out on this one, and today we have a special guest, Sarah Hill, with us, my roommate and now best friend.
Yeah.
Just to give a little background as well, Sarah is the brains behind the name of the podcast and the one that was shouting it on the streets of London as we were having Delulu time.
Well, you were shouting on the streets of London, but that's another story.
I think we all had our moments. But wanted to have you on because so sad you are leaving.
Yes.
In, I can't believe, 3 weeks. Heading off to big girl school, Stanford, which is so crazy. Sarah and I were both random roommates in this house of 4. They needed 2 people to move in, and we were the 2 random roommates, and both coincidentally are from Oregon. So kind of just a crazy comeuppance there.
Yeah.
I know we kind of wanted to chat a little bit more about background of how you got here, and kind of like one of the first conversations I feel like we had getting to know each other, you had brought up a breakup that you went through. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I don't even know the full situation of all the crazy details that went down. Mm-hmm. And how that kind of led you here, and then even led you to the big decisions that you've had to make moving forward of leaving San Diego, because I know this has become such an important part of your life and your journey and your home. I want to get into all those juicy details, but I do want to talk about myself first.
As you should.
On the note of breakups and everything, I feel like I want to be transparent with the listeners, because I feel like I've had a lot of people reach out to me and just telling me that I've inspired them with like the career transitions I've made, and how I kind of like quickly was able to get past a breakup and get back into dating and all of that. And I wanted to be really transparent because, as you saw the other night, I had a big breakdown. And I just wanted to be open and honest that it has not all been rainbows and butterflies for me. And I'm really proud of myself and the journey that I've been on this year. But I'm definitely trying to practice what I preach. And I think with career transitions, like, it definitely has like reached a pinnacle of me trying all these different things and trying to figure out what I like and don't like. And, you know, quitting a corporate job and following your passion sounds like this awesome thing to do, and what I think has inspired people. But it's also been really, really challenging, because I'm figuring out a lot of what I don't like, and experiencing a lot of burnout, and holding multiple jobs to try to be able to make ends meet and figure out how things work, and figure out what jobs I want to keep and what jobs I don't want, and where this is gonna lead me future-wise. So just wanted to be honest with that. And same with like the dating aspect. Like, I am still very much hurting over my breakup, and it's been 8 months, and I know I've been out on the dating scene and trying to pick up the pieces and kind of explore that in a fun way. And it has been fun, but it's also been very challenging as well. So just wanting to be transparent with you guys, and just know that like I'm right there with you, and I'm not a perfect person, and we all struggle and go through these things. And I know that you kind of have a lot to touch on with this, with your experiences going through a breakup. And I know you kind of wanted to talk about like what you learned, what you did right, and maybe what you did wrong as well. Mm-hmm. I think for myself, I'm learning that I immediately just kind of shoved all the feelings down and was like, okay, I'm going to go do this, and like ignore all of my feelings and deal with it later. And now everything's kind of coming up, and I'm like, oh shit, I should probably have handled that earlier and felt my feelings and processed the breakup versus later down the road. So I'm definitely curious to hear kind of what happened with you and how that went.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, what you just mentioned about the 8-month thing,
Yeah.
that's, I feel like, a good segue, because the other day I was thinking about, it was the end of, the end of July just passed, and that marked my 2-year anniversary of my breakup. And I was like, I can't believe I'm still tracking this.
Yeah.
But it's so natural, because
Yeah.
I think it's a positive thing, because you're excited for what the future holds. You're trying to get to that place of healing. So I know it can feel like you're like, oh, every single day I'm like, oh, it's been 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. When am I going to stop feeling like this?
Yeah.
And when I went through my breakup, which I'll step back on and talk about that a little bit, but just on that point, I remember somebody told me it takes about half of the length of your relationship, whatever that may be, it takes half of that to heal from it.
Right.
And okay, that
do you feel like that's true?
Freaked me out. I was like, so I was in a 5.5, nearly 6-year relationship, and when I heard that, I was like, bullshit.
Yeah.
I was like, you're telling me it's gonna take 2.5 years to heal from this?
Right.
Unfortunately.
Well, it's so crazy too, because when I first met you and we were like in the Uber on the way to Shore Club and we were first kind of opening up to each other, you were like, yeah, like I went through a big breakup, and I was like, all right, girl, we all do. And then you were like, yeah, 5.5 years. I was like, holy shit.
I know, I remember that so well, because like we were still getting to know each other, and I have a lot of shame around my breakup, which I'll talk about. But when you asked me, you're like, so are you single? Like, are you dating? You're like, who are you? And I was like, I don't know. It's like, I haven't had to introduce myself to new people. Like, I was in a new place, and we were just getting to know each other. And then honestly, like, I think that broke the wall. Like, that broke the ice to be able to open up about it, proved something to myself. Like, oh, I mean, it had already been almost a year at that time.
Right.
And that talking to you about it, and the rest of the girls, you were the first one I talked to about it. And I think that once I got it out and I said it, I was like, that was such a forward stepping point, that I was like, oh, I am ready to, like, I can get over this. I can move on. Talking about it is like the biggest thing, because I kept a lot of it to myself. So I'll talk a little bit about that if you want me to.
Absolutely. Please do.
So I was with my ex for, like I said, almost nearly 6 years. We met when I was 18, and we met my freshman year of college, and we were both in the architecture program, and everything. I want to start by saying, like, he is a great guy. I am not here to, like, dump on him. This is about me and my healing process from this relationship.
Of course.
And I think there is truth to, like, as you move through different phases of life, people are meant to be in that phase and they're not meant to be in other phases. And I think that that is exactly what happened, in a way. There's a lot of other elements to it. But I think the way I would describe the situation was, I stayed in something for way too long, and I stayed because I was too scared to end it. Mm-hmm. And because of that, it ended in a way that was out of my control. And that's where the shame comes in, because when I reflect on the last, honestly, it was probably like 2 years that I started feeling like, I don't know if I should stay in this or not. But that thought was so, like, pushed down, like, so subconscious, that I didn't even really act on it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, everything, like, blew up. And I looked back and I was like, how did I not see it coming?
I feel like that happens so often, and I've been in those shoes, where you have the feelings and you're like, it's like you said, you shove that thought down, down, and then the universe has no choice but to tumultuously end it for you. Because you didn't do it yourself.
Totally.
Which sucks. But it's also like, thank you for eventually making it happen.
Right.
Really shitty in the moment, but now looking back, so glad it did.
Yeah. And I think the important thing is to, like, take away from that, like, I'm acknowledging that I messed up fully like take blame for that. I should have ended it when I started feeling that way. And it's like, okay, how do I in the future, how do I moving forward make sure that I don't make that same mistake? And I don't know the answer to that yet, but I at least am thinking about it a lot. And something that after the breakup happened, I went back and I read my journals, and my jaw was like on the floor.
No.
It literally was like the key. Like
Yeah.
everything I was writing,
Yeah.
I was like, I literally wrote at the end of one of my journal entries, I wrote help.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Speaking of, I literally just did the same thing where I looked back at my journal of when my ex and I were dating, and I was like, nope, like not doing that today. I was like, ow, 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 that hurts, not looking at that.
Yeah, seriously. And I want to say, like, I think a good piece of advice if you're having like those thoughts, like it'll pop up like really fast and you, like push it down. Like even if people listening to this are like, oh, I'm in a long-term relationship and I don't feel that way. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Dig deep,
Right,
because
right.
your subconscious pushes it down.
Right.
And I think maybe I wonder if it would have been helpful for me to reread my journals way sooner.
Yeah.
Like I didn't do that until the breakup, and I went back to like the night I met him.
Yeah.
And I had not done that in the whole time I was with him.
Well, I feel like us girls just, I mean, we do that. We see red flags or like we get those feelings of like, this isn't right. And we immediately are like, okay, no. Like, but he's so great. He's so perfect. This is so well. Like, I'm not going to break up just because I'm like having this like one random thought. Like, no. But then you keep having it and you keep ignoring it and keep ignoring it. And I feel like it's just a classic thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, it's like, if you are even having that thought, that's kind of an answer in and of itself.
Yeah.
And I just think that like trying to dig deep and really like listen to your intuition is important. Something I thought about the other day was a big part of why I didn't want to break up with him was because I had already invested so much time. I was like, we were 24 when we broke up, and I was like, I'm 24. I feel like my fun single years like I only have a little bit left, which is so not true. Like that, no. That's what society makes you think.
Right.
No, not at all. But I thought that was so funny, like that train of thought. Like I've already invested all this time. I should just stay. Where it's like the thought process should have been, I've already invested all this time. Why the hell am I about to invest more?
Right,
like, I need to get out now.
Yeah.
And it was kind of, and I also knew the part of me that like wishes if I had done it differently would have obviously been to communicate these feelings. And then I would have been like, hey, I need to be single for a little bit to like make sure that I don't like resent you
Right.
if we get married or whatever, we stay in a partnership 10 years down the road, that I wasn't single since I was 18.
Yeah.
And that some people that is totally okay with them.
Right.
But that wasn't okay with me. Like it would have eaten me alive, and I would have probably taken it out on the wrong person. And so I knew that all along, but I didn't know how to bring it up. And that is like a maturity and an age thing as well.
Yeah.
That just comes with time, I think, too.
It's funny because this like exact situation happened with the ex that I dated in college. Pretty seriously, I would call that like my first love, and almost a little bit on the flip side, but he was in a long-term relationship 2 months before he met me. And then we met and almost like immediately started dating, and we're together for like a little over a year at this point when I started to have almost those same thoughts, but for him. I was like, I wonder if he wants to be single in college, and because we were sophomores when we met, and I was like, I feel like he should have like a single college experience and enjoy that. Like he was with somebody for like 4 years before me and then met me, and I want to be with him for forever. So he should probably be single before we do that. So I kind of broached that conversation with him, and I was like, do you ever feel like you want to be single and like have time to yourself in college? And he was like, yeah, actually, I really do. Yeah. And in the moment, I was like fuck. Because we almost immediately broke up after that.
That's so big of you, though.
Yeah.
Like,
I
wow.
felt like during the time, I felt like I opened up a can of worms, and I put a lot of blame on myself for being the instigator of it ending. I was like, if I would have just kept my mouth shut, like, none of this would have happened. But now, of course, I can reflect back and be like, oh my God, thank God I, like, gave him that opening and let him do that, because he obviously needed it. And it would have, like we said, like, probably ended tumultuously, maybe, you know, if we had stayed together longer.
You did what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
What I would have liked to do, you did it.
Right.
Which, it's a hard thing, because it's what you did is so selfless.
Yeah.
You put the other person first. And that honestly kind of is what it comes down to. Like, I kind of think about, like, how I stayed in my relationship. Sometimes I'd, like, tell myself I was selfish. Like, because the harder thing to do was to say, like, hey, well, in your case, you weren't feeling that way, but, like, I was like, hey, I'm kind of feeling this way. And it was scary to ask him if he was feeling the same way, too. Right. I didn't want him to know the answer. Right. So I just did nothing. Yeah. And, like, what a coward.
Yeah.
So I've had, like, a lot that I've had to, you know, work through on that. And I think, like I had said earlier, it's like, as long as you acknowledge and take action to change, you don't have to, like, have such negative self-talk.
Yeah.
But what you did is very, very, like, impressive.
Thank you.
I commend you for that.
I mean, it was, like, so tough. That was, like, probably one of my biggest heartbreaks.
Yeah.
But yeah, now, of course, like, being able to look back at it, I'm like so grateful for the experience.
Yeah.
And I think it, like, still don't blame yourself so much, because at the end of the day, like, broaching those conversations is really, really hard, and you don't know how the other person is going to react, and they could be, like, really, really upset about it. Yeah. And, you know, oftentimes those conversations do lead to a breakup. Because if one of you is feeling that way, then, you know, then you're like, how do you kind of walk back from that? But at the same time, if you guys are meant to be, then you guys will be able to work through it and kind of give each other the space. And I think it kind of almost goes into the realm of people taking breaks in relationships and taking a moment to be by themselves if they need that. And I feel like there's so much negative stigma around people who are together and then break up and then get back together. And I've always been, I guess, against that, or just, like, more accepting to that idea, because I think it's so valid and so real. And I know a lot of people, well, I don't know a lot of people, but I know people that have dated, broken up, got back together, got married. Yeah. Because they had that space to, like, be an individual and, like, grow without the person, because they needed that at the time. And then they were both accepting when they came back around and got back together. So, not to say that it's always going to end in a breakup, but
no,
if it's the right person, you guys will work it out and you'll be together.
Exactly. If it's the right person, 100%. And that's the thing. It's like, with what you just said too about how you brought it up to him, and you were like, oh, I think you might need to, like, do you want some time to be single? In the roundabout way, even though it's, like, hard to get your mind there, it did benefit you too. Yeah. Because that gave you your answer. Yeah. The right person will stay. Yes. You know, will stick around.
100%.
So.
And tell me how that led to the rest of your journey of, like, moving here and, like, the in-between of that.
Yeah. Okay. So we nose dove. Okay. We went down hard first and then pulled real hard on the handles and came back up. That's how it goes. I'll give the synopsis of that.
Okay, yeah. Walk me through your breakup journey.
I just love talking about it because it's comical. Like, I cannot get over it. Okay, so I was going through this breakup. I was living in Seattle. My roommates, who I was friends with at the time, they moved out. In breakup headspace, had other girls move in. Wasn't as much of a good match. Yeah. Didn't align, different interests, just, you know, regular roommate stuff. Then my car got totaled. Then I broke my toes. Then I got strep.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I'm not okay.
Wait, can you remind me how you broke your toes?
I was getting up for work, going to work like a zombie. So I thought that I was going to get fired too, because I was just not mentally there.
Yeah.
And I was walking through my room in the dark, and I jammed him into a dumbbell on my floor.
Like,
and I just looked,
life could not get any worse.
because I had never broken a bone before. And like, that happened, and I was like, that was not a stub toe. Like, I heard the crack. I was like,
God.
I just broke
toes
my
are the
toe.
worst too.
Yeah.
It's so sensitive, and then you have to figure out how to walk on
yeah.
it.
And my sister's a nurse, and I called her, and I was like, what do we do? And she was like, nothing. She was like, you can't do anything for broken toes.
Oy.
So anyways, so then I knew that I was unhappy in Seattle. I was living in Seattle at the time. We are from the Pacific Northwest. I knew I'd always wanted to live somewhere sunny. And this was the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to start taking things back, because in my relationship, I became me and my ex, not just me. I lost myself in him, and I think a lot of people do that, and sometimes you don't even notice.
Yep.
And I always wanted to live somewhere sunny, but I had always had my eyes on San Diego, but I was like, how do I get there? And I asked my company at the time if I could like transfer, but there wasn't really like the infrastructure to help me succeed here, because I was I was working as an interior designer, as newer at it, as 23, 24. And so I was like, okay, well, I need to take control here. I finally have control. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to look for a company that has a position in San Diego. And actually, one of my dream companies that isn't known for hiring interior designers was hiring an interior designer.
Amazing.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to apply to that. And then it happened, and I told them, hey, I want to come down to San Diego. And they were like, great. But my lease wasn't up in Seattle yet, so I had to stay. And this is the hardest part. I had to stay in Seattle for 6 months. And I did not love my roommates. I did not love the weather. I felt so alone. I didn't know who I was. You know, I went from every day walking home from work calling my boyfriend.
Yeah.
I went from every day, every time something got hard, calling my boyfriend, to silence.
Right.
Who do I call? I had my mom, but it wasn't the same.
Yeah, you feel like a huge emptiness from your life.
Totally. But I think that discomfort is the prize.
Yeah.
Like, because now
that's where the juicy stuff builds.
I was 18. Like,
yeah.
You don't. I kind of know things about myself. I know that I'm hardworking. I know that I like fashion. I like interior design. But it's so funny, because what I know now, sitting here in front of you, like, honestly, when I met you, I couldn't say, like, without, like, laughing awkwardly, like, I'm smart, I'm pretty, I'm funny.
Oh,
I just said it.
I love this. Yeah.
Like, I could not do that.
Yeah.
And I think being here and living with all you, the three of you, and finding myself again, I said this the other night, but I call our house here the house that healed me.
Yeah.
Because it got me out of such a rut, and it taught me how to live life again.
Yes.
Like, I can do this. I will be okay. But it takes time.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say about being in Seattle, those sometimes life, like, you just feel stuck. And I think this might also like kind of like relate to your journey right now with like finding I know I didn't want to work a 9-to-5 corporate job, and I know I want to be in the wellness space, but like, what does that mean exactly?
Right.
I feel like I'm in mud. Like, that's kind of how I felt in Seattle. I was like, okay, I know I want to be in San Diego, but I'm stuck here. There's nothing for me here. And I just kept patience. Like, sometimes you don't understand it. You don't know why the universe is making you wait. I was like, why am I just living like, the sun rises, the sun sets, the sun rises, the sun sets, and I was just waiting to move.
Right.
And I thought about it the other day, because I was getting so impatient that I almost moved in with some different girls, like in Pacific Beach, like a different area.
Yeah.
And I was like on the phone with my mom, and I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to sign the lease so I can get out here. I'm going to break my lease in Seattle. And then my intuition was just like, no, don't do it. But then I was like, if I let it go, it's gone, and I don't have
Right.
another thing. And so then I let it go, and I'm like, why did I do that? Like, all I want to do is get out of here. Why did I let that go? And so now when I think about it, how I've lived here with the three of you for the last year, that is why I had to be patient.
100%.
Because this place opened, and when I saw it open, I was like, oh, yeah, I want that place.
Yeah.
Had I settled for any of the other places sooner,
Yeah.
we wouldn't be sitting here right now.
I literally
So.
had the exact same thing happen with me. I had kind of like a crazy journey of just trying to find a place, and I used to live with Bree, and then we kind of randomly both had to move out quickly, and she moved in with her now fiance, but I was scrambling and temporarily moved in with my boyfriend at the time, and we were not in a place where we were ready to live together. So I was kind of like quick on my feet to find something else to move into, and basically reaching out to everybody everywhere, all the Facebook pages. And I would like meet somebody, tour the house, try to go through with it, and like it wouldn't work out. It wouldn't work out. It wouldn't work out. And that happened like 3-4 times, and I was like panicking. And also just in a really tough position, because it ended up working out fine, and I'm so grateful that my ex like took me in during that time so that I wasn't homeless. But it was like stressful because we just really weren't in a place where we were ready to move in together, and I was feeling that pressure of not wanting to like impede on his space, and I was like freaking out that I wasn't going to be able to find anything. And of course, like last minute, one of my friends was like, oh my gosh, my friend is looking for 2 new roommates. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like a mutual connection, like came, saw the house. I was like immediately like, yes. 'Cause I was just like, I need a place. Mm-hmm. And same thing, like have just been so grateful for the experience and for meeting the three of you. And now I understand that this is what was meant to be, and that I had to wait and go through that uncomfortable time to find this place and to be with you guys. And same as you, this is also becoming the house that's healing me. Like going through what I've been going through, starting with the breakup, like I would be very unwell if I was in any other situation, you know, like I feel like immediately you guys just kind of, I don't know, you're just like supportive girlfriends, and the type where like you don't even have to talk about anything, and just to be able to like sit in each other's presence and sit down on the couch and watch silly movies and eat ice cream and popcorn and whatever. And that's kind of all you need during those times. So it can be difficult to find, you know, a support group or friends or whatever it is during those times. And I've definitely been in a breakup where I didn't have that, and it sounds like you did too.
Right.
And sometimes all you have is to lean back on yourself. Yeah. And that's tough, but that's also like so rewarding after the fact that you were there to like pick your own pieces up. So I feel like it's beautiful either way it goes. Like if you have a support system, that's awesome. And if you just have yourself, I'm sorry, but it's such a beautiful journey.
Yeah. Journal.
You know?
Journal.
Your journal is going to be your
magical.
best friend.
I honestly, that's so true. Something that I have always been insecure about is friendships. My older sister, I watched her growing up. She had a best friend, and I was so envious of it. Like it was like we go on a family trip, she comes. Like it was like just shoe in, like no questions, like obviously.
Yeah.
And I always like I have so many close girlfriends, and I've come close to that feeling of like, oh, this is my best friend. But I also think now at this point I have multiple like best friends. Yeah. So it's just people are different, you know, the way you interpret it. Yeah. But when I was going through my breakup, I felt like I had no one.
Yeah.
And honestly, when I was still with my ex, I remember that we were on a trip, and his family asked me, they were like, so who would, if you were to get married, like they weren't like putting like marriage pressure on us or anything, but they were like, if you were to get married, like who would your bridesmaids be? And I literally broke into a cold sweat. Like I was like, and I go, I think my friend, shout out Ramina, I think my friend Ramina, and they were like, you think? And I was like, well, I've never thought about it. And then I just, like, panicked. I was like,
Yeah.
and now that I've reflected, I think there's some unhealthy elements of the relationship that stunted my growth finding friends, because I was 18 in college.
Yeah.
I had a bounty of, like, friendships that I could have nurtured.
Right.
And again, some of it is me. I will, like, totally, like, you know, acknowledge that
Yeah.
I was that girl that kind of put everything into her boyfriend, and I am now, you know, reaping the costs of that.
Yeah.
But there was also a little bit of the, I don't like your friends aren't fun. And
I hate that.
a little bit of, like, isolation
Yeah.
in the relationship. And so, again, it's just even more, like, power to getting out of something like that.
Yeah.
Like, if your gut and your intuition is telling you, like, I'm with somebody, but I feel lonely, that's not good.
Right.
Yeah. And it's a scary thing to do, to get out. But I also think that, like, if you are feeling lonely and you are feeling like you don't have those friends, you're just in a certain point, and that's going to change. It doesn't mean you're never going to have that support system. Like, you just, again, have to be patient.
Right.
You got to go through the lows. There wouldn't be highs without
Yeah.
lows. It would all just be level and boring.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So,
and it's almost
yeah.
like it gets worse before it gets better.
Mhm, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And then, so with you being here and obviously things kind of like picking up and getting better, talk about how it's kind of like led you to your career / you know, journey with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it kind of goes back to when I was still in Seattle, honestly, because I wanted to get out so badly that I was like, okay, I finally found a job in San Diego. I'm making this happen. I'm moving to San Diego. The other way that I was thinking about getting out before I got, like, the job offer and everything was happening was grad school. And so I also got into USC for construction management, and I was, like, over the moon. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't think I was going to get in. But then I got in, and I had already decided to move here. So I was like, what? So this is hard. This is like where we get into the decision making. And
Yeah.
I was so fragile not knowing who I was, like, coming out of that relationship, that now introduced my father, who was like, you got into USC, you could have an opportunity like this, you got to go.
Right.
But for myself, I had been looking forward to living in San Diego for so long. I was like, how can it's right here. How can I say no to it? And I had to do the hard thing. And all the voices were go to grad school. But my voice, deep, deep down, was go to San Diego.
Yeah.
And so I did. I deferred for a year. And I'm not going to lie, right when I got here, it all hit me. I just moved. I don't know anyone. I don't even know the people in my office.
And the weather kind of sucked that year.
I literally was like, what did I do? You guys were convincing me so hard. You're like, we promise it'll get better.
Right when Sarah moved here, the weather in San Diego was, like, notoriously horrible, more horrible than it has ever been. And so we were like, we promise it'll get better. It's not always cloudy like this.
It was tough. The funny thing was that I remember shutting my trunk in Seattle, and it was pouring rain, and I got in the car and I was like, I'm driving to Southern California. Like, I was like, I'm out of here. And I get here and I'm like, it's cloudy. And I was like, maybe it's just for a couple days. Like, that's fine. And I, like, go on social media. Right, like, literally the day after I left, summer came early in Seattle.
Right.
And it was like
Right.
75, 80 degrees. And I was just like, like, I was so patient.
Yeah.
It's not over yet. Apparently, we're still testing my patience.
Right. Right. The universe is like, wait, one more thing.
Yeah, literally. And so I was like, I'm just going to stick in it, like, stay with it. But honestly, I knew. I was like, everyone's saying it's just cloudy, like, it'll get better, and it totally did.
Yeah.
But I did have a breakdown in the shower one night, and I literally was like, should I have gone to USC? Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But again, my intuition told me to stay here and do this, see this through. And then, because I was excited about USC, but honestly, I was thinking I was kind of doing it more so for my dad than I was doing it for myself.
Right.
and sorry if he hears that.
Sorry, Dad.
Sorry, Dad. Because of that, I started researching a couple more grad programs, and I came across one at Stanford that was sustainable design and construction, not construction management. You can still go into that direction with it, but I was like, well, that's my language. I'm so passionate about sustainability. And so I was like, okay, what's this? I'll just apply to this. So I applied. Oops, sorry. I applied and then didn't think, I was like, I'll still go to USC. Like, this is a long shot. And then I got in. And then everything flipped upside down.
So wild.
Because with the USC, what I was thinking was, I was like, oh, now I have like this great community and friendships and everything in San Diego and LA as a drive away.
Close by, yeah.
But Stanford...
How do you say no to that?
Well, it wasn't easy. And
no, but I'm saying, like, I can see how torn you would be by that.
This is probably... That first decision of deferring was the first thing. Like, that was the first hard thing. I went against... That was the first time I had done something for myself.
Yeah.
Since ever. Like... Literally, like, I don't know if I did anything for myself before then. Maybe quitting soccer and cheering instead, because my dad wanted me to play soccer too.
Oh my God, I'm seeing a theme.
But like yes. Frivolous stuff.
Yes,
yeah.
Of course.
So the Stanford USC decision, that's something I wanted to talk about, because it doesn't make sense why I picked Stanford, really. Like, it's still on paper. On paper, it doesn't make sense. So I did make a pros and cons list, and I wrote down, like USC, I had a scholarship. USC's closer to here. USC doesn't have this GPA requirement. USC, blah, 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 blah. Like, all these things, like, that were pros.
Right.
I didn't have a single pro on Stanford's list.
Really?
Like, literally, other than I'm interested.
Wow.
And so I was like, well, then I should go to USC. And my therapist did a little exercise with me. And so if anyone's like making a big decision, try this.
Yeah.
Because she was like, you should go home to your roommates tonight, walk in the door and be like, I made my decision, you guys, going to USC, and see how you feel. Like, believe it. Like, believe that you made you made that choice,
right.
That option. And then she was like, but don't tell anyone what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then, the next night, do it again and be like, actually, changed my mind. I just signed my letter. I'm going to Stanford, and see how you feel.
I love this.
What was so great about that, if you get to that point of doing it, great. I didn't even get to that point because I couldn't walk in the door.
I was going to say, I don't remember you doing that.
No, I was like, I'm going to walk in. I'm going to tell everyone I committed to USC. I couldn't.
Oh my gosh.
Couldn't.
I
just couldn't.
Great exercise.
Yeah. And that was telling.
Wow.
The fact that I couldn't even do the exercise was like,
yeah.
So, I'm still... And then what really comes down to, I have said it so many times in this podcast, but like the intuition.
I was gonna say, it sounds like you have a really good inner voice.
Yeah, well, it's taken a while to find it.
Yeah,
but I kind of have this theory. It's like I kind of formed it like over the past couple months. I almost, because like if you look up the definition of intuition, it's a gray area.
Yeah,
there is a true definition. Like Webster has a definition, but everyone has their own personal interpretations of it. And what I kind of am starting to think it is it's your future self telling your current self, this is the right choice. It doesn't have any like rational, like it doesn't seem right now.
Right.
But like, I promise you, this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And you have to listen to that
love
voice.
That. I've been thinking about this a lot for a long time in my life, but I think about free will a lot, and I feel like that taps into intuition for me, like with what you're saying, because I like really agree with what you're saying. And I feel like sometimes with free will, I think a lot about whether or not everything is predestined, or if we truly have free will and there's like multiple different avenues we can go. And honestly, I'm like, either way, I think that you have an inner guidance, like you're saying, that so we'll say if things are predetermined, then you have that inner guidance that's leading you down that path. You can make no mistakes because no matter what, you're making the right decision and it's leading you down that way. And you have that inner voice that's always guiding you, even when you ignore it. And you're always going to end up in the right situation.
Yeah.
If free will is completely by choice and you can fuck up your life, I think your inner voice still figures out and helps you how to get on the right path again.
Yeah,
you know?
that's true. Yeah. Even when you're in the lowest low, you're like, how did I get here? How did my free will and my inner voice get me here?
Right.
It's like, it's easy to lose
maybe there are multiple different avenues of how you can get to the end goal.
Right.
And you have the free will to choose which path you end up taking, but you still have that voice that's like being like, no, I really think you should go left here. You're like, I'm going to go right. And you go right. And you're like, oh, fuck. I should have gone left here. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and then that's another part of it too, is like not trying to think about, oh my gosh, I should have, like, think about the past.
Yeah.
And I think when you do make a decision and you go in one direction, it's important not to like stay in that and like, drive yourself crazy thinking about the what ifs.
Right.
But also, I don't really think about the what ifs that much, which tells me it was the right decision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I saw this. Sorry.
No. Go ahead. Go.
This is like, it's on topic. I saw this TikTok and this girl was saying that she basically like spent the night at, the guy that you're seeing that like is trouble.
Yeah.
And they call it like the Mr. Big guy. I've just been seeing this new thing on TikTok.
I've seen
it's
this.
Mr. Big from Sex and the City.
Yeah.
But she saw her Mr. Big and she was like in the car the next day talking about it, and she was like, you know what, I just had a feeling that I needed to do it and I needed to go over there and see him. And she was like, you know what, I make no mistakes and I'm perfect. So she's like, I have no regrets.
Confidence.
And I love that, because truly, like, how terrible is it to go through life constantly being like, I could really like fuck up my life by making this wrong decision, and just constantly like going into a spiral. Like, even with you, like, you've made the decision to go Stanford, and maybe you're in a place of being like, is this still the right decision?
100%.
And just like get yourself out of that turmoil and be like, you know what, I'm perfect. I've made the decision. It's the right one. Or if it's not the right one, I'll still get led down the right path.
Right.
I'll still become the person I'm meant to be.
Yeah.
So.
And it's really funny. It's because then I got laid off. So that happened. And I was like, that's all right.
It's all good.
It's okay.
It's all part of the plan.
Thanks, guys. But on that note of like, just like the fear element, like, what if I do this? What if I do that? There is a Nelson Mandela quote that I love. I'm probably going to butcher it a little bit, but it was like, may your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. And I kind of had to think about it for a second, because Stanford was scarier to me than USC. Like, USC felt doable. It's nearby. Like I said, there's no GPA requirement. Okay, quick. Pause.
Continue.
Okay. But yeah, so like USC didn't have a GPA requirement. It felt like it felt tangible. Like I was like, I can do this. Stanford, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But if I had chosen USC over Stanford, I would have been doing it out of fear. Whereas like my hope is to design sustainable systems and buildings and make the world a better place, and find new technologies, and that is what lights a fire under me.
Right.
That I'm gonna get that at Stanford. Those are my hopes. My fears were that I'm gonna fail, but I don't want that to drive my decision.
Absolutely.
And so I didn't. I made my choice based on that. What I just said, my hopes, not my fears.
Right.
So I was like, whoa.
I love that. I feel like that is a great way to live your life delusionally.
Yeah.
And being like, I am going to like you said, like make decisions out of hope, not out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's huge and can play out into like so many things in your life.
Yeah, yeah. And it also helped too. Like there's another thing, because I went through it. I was listening to like every single like self-help like podcast. Like I was reading this stuff. Like I literally Googled, how do you make a big decision?
Right.
I was like
this
ChatGPT.
wasn't like an overnight thing for you. It was
No.
like months of trying to figure out what to do. Yeah.
And it's so funny because it should be such a fun decision to make.
Yeah.
And it really, like, I know it sounds ridiculous to be like, oh, that was not fun. It really wasn't fun. I mean, it's my future that I'm like deciding.
Right.
And money. But also, like, I would like in the morning, I saw this like fact, I don't know, I like Googled it, and it was like, I was like, how many decisions does somebody make in a day? And it's something about like 30,000.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, that's not right. 30,000, because when you think about it, you wake up in the morning, and even though this is routine, you turn off your alarm, you go to the bathroom, you brush your teeth. That's routine. You're not really thinking about it. You are. Yeah. You are choosing to lean over, turn off that alarm. What should I do right now? Should I go to the bathroom first, or should I brush my teeth first? You make these micro decisions.
What should I wear? What time should I leave for work?
Exactly. You are constantly making decisions.
Yeah.
So we're actually seasoned professionals in decision making.
Oh, I love that.
And so I was trying to tell myself, like, I made 30,000 decisions today.
Yes,
I can make one more.
Yes.
And like my heart's still beating. I'm still living with all the decisions I made today.
Yes.
So I can do it again.
Yeah. And just giving yourself that reassurance of like trusting yourself.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the biggest part of it.
That's
you
a
know?
big one.
Yeah. Like, because I feel like at the end of the day, you are struggling also to make the decision not only out of fear, but just out of like, do I really trust myself to make this decision? And like, I feel like sometimes you outwardly rely on other people, and you bounce back the idea so many times, like getting that validation. Am I making the right decision? At the end of the day, it's only you that's going to know that. You know, everybody else can give their opinions, but at the end of the day, you have to trust yourself, and that's a scary spot to be in.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because like, shout out to my therapist, because she asked me, because when I was going through this, she said exactly that to me. She was like, do you trust yourself? And I said no. And then she was like, why do you think that is? And then I immediately got like, I was like, no, I do trust myself. Because I think that's part of like that still like healing, like not knowing myself and whatever. You can always trust yourself. You just have to like find it,
right,
and empower it. Like everybody has that within them,
right? And
it's so easy to turn to the outside voices.
Yeah,
but yeah, you just gotta like put on your big girl pants and be like, no,
100%.
Yeah, this is what I'm
and
gonna
that's
do.
like exactly where I was at with deciding to quit my corporate job. And you know, I was living out of fear a little bit, and going back and forth and being like, okay, well, I have a stable job right now, and I'm about to give that up for hopes and dreams and passions. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, like we've been saying, like I just was having that voice that was just like, do it. You need to do it. And I was like, no, but okay, yes, maybe I should.
But yeah, it's so funny because it's like, why wouldn't you trust yourself? Every decision you've made has gotten you to where you are right now.
Right.
And even if you made a wrong decision, like how I handled, my relationship coming to an end, it got me to here. You will always land on your feet. Like, you can't, even if you're like, well, I've made a million bad decisions and I don't trust myself at all. No, all those decisions are going to lead to the right one.
Yeah.
You're on a journey, and you will get to where you need to be. You just got to trust the process.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like there's always a silver lining in the chaos of it. If you do make a decision that kind of takes you down a negative or maybe like a tumultuous road at first or during the journey, like no matter what, you kind of find your way back to like the bliss of oh, that's why that all happened the way it did.
Yeah, totally. Oh man, I think about this too, like right now, like I look into the future, and it makes me really scared, and I'm heartbroken that I have to leave here, and it doesn't make sense right now. Like, I'm in that place right now. Like, why am I throwing away these great friendships? And, well, when I was working, I really loved my job. So I was like, a great job and a great friendships. Why am I leaving it?
Right.
And then it will make sense someday.
Yeah.
I just don't know right now.
Yeah.
So I just got to hold on. And, like, I don't know. We'll see.
I'm so excited for you. I'm obviously, like, beyond sad.
I know.
But I'm so excited for you. And I also have a very good feeling about this for you in the journey. And I just feel like 2 years from now, I'm going to see you and you're going to be, like, a whole different person in, like, the best way. Not to say that I'm not going to see you in between the 2 years.
We're definitely going to visit
all the time. But I just know you're going to grow a lot from the experience.
Yeah, I think so, too. Yeah, and it's just kind of funny because... again, how everything just like happens, because if I had been laid off and I moved here for the job, I would have felt so like lost and confused, and then that probably would have had other doors come with it, right? Like we're saying, like everything guides you to where you need to be, but I'm like, this must be the right thing to do,
right?
So. And then it's really fun when you meet a boy right before you leave.
Do you want to get into that?
We can.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about it. So, well, what's funny
because it's a funny
is
story.
that obviously I told you guys about how I had left my number on my neighbor's car, and that, didn't pan out, and that's okay. But long story short, his roommate, both him and I thought that Sarah would get along with really well, and so we totally like set them up to meet one day, and I swear you guys just like boom, like instant connection, just like took off from there, and I was like, oh fuck, that went way better than I was expecting. And I'm like reflecting back even, and I know we've talked about this, like I was obviously like bummed that it didn't work out with him, but I feel so grateful that I like helped to facilitate you meeting him. And I feel like that was maybe the purpose of it, even if it had I'm sure I got like purpose out of it for myself as well, but knowing that I'm helping to make other people's lives better in my own journey and the things that I do. Like, I love that I connected you to somebody that's significant to you.
You really did.
Yeah.
If you hadn't left your number, this whole experience wouldn't have happened. Right. So, thank you.
Of course.
Little matchmaker.
That is the ultimate wing woman, might I say.
That is so true. You really are the ultimate wing woman.
Yeah.
And I had been wanting to be more like you. I was like, Lucia, like, goes for it. Like, she goes for what she wants. Like, so confident. And I had been wanting to do that. And then you texted me and you're like, I left my number on his, like, whatever. And I was like, she did it? I was like, okay, starting tomorrow, I'm going to do this. And you know what's so funny? I keep forgetting this. Actually, the day I met Joe was the day I got laid off. It was that Monday.
Yeah, that's right.
My gosh.
That's right.
So funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went back to get my hair done. I just go to my mom's hairstylist. And so I was home visiting them, and they're in the Bay Area, and I was getting my hair done. And she was like, so what's new? And I was like, I got into grad school. I got laid off. I, like, still loving San Diego, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And she was like, we talked for a second, and I had, like, been complaining to you guys about how, like, the dating here was not going well. Mm-hmm. And just not bad, but just, like, swing and a miss. Like, nothing was sticking, and I was bored.
Right.
And I was like, And then she goes, don't tell me you've met someone.
Oh.
And I was like, yup. Love life. Doing stuff like that.
Super, super, super cool.
Cool.
Sick.
Love. And so then I was like, right off the bat, like, I'm moving. Like, I'm leaving. So
yeah.
I'm putting the ball in your court, unfortunately.
Right.
And he thought that I was like leaving in a month. And so I think he, like, asked me one day, he was like, when are you leaving? And I was like, oh, like, end of August, September. And he was like, really? This is, like, May. And so I was like, yeah. He was like, I thought you were leaving, like, next month. And so we decided, we're like, all right, let's just, like, keep doing this for the summer.
See how it goes. Yeah.
And it's just gotten better and better, like, every day.
Yeah.
And now
This is almost, like, so full circle to actually, like, end with this.
Yeah.
Because now... Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
I do that often.
No.
It's leading to you being in the same position of I know we'll touch on with like your ex and being in that position again of dating somebody right at the start of school, and also the same thing of like having to make a big decision and following your intuition.
Yeah.
Okay, you take it over now.
This, you guys, like, this is, so what I was saying earlier, dude, what I was saying earlier, we were just imitating jokes.
The man himself.
Yeah. So what I was saying earlier was like, what I think is so important for making mistakes in your life is to learn from them and try your best to not do it again. And that's kind of the sticky thing I'm in right now, where when I was with my ex, I had this like this voice that was somewhere down there that was saying, get out, get out, get out, but I wasn't letting it come to the light. And so I want to make sure that I'm not making the same mistake by going to school, because I had this plan that this was my do-over. I'm going to grad school. I'm going into like a university setting with all new people and whatever. I am going to stay single through it. Like, I owe that to myself.
Not repeat this history.
Exactly. Not repeat the history. And now we are in this situation where I do have somebody I really like, and he likes me, and he's nothing like my ex. He's supportive, and he's letting me go. Like, he wants me to go. Like, which, I mean, there was some of that too with my ex, but like, it's just different. Yeah. And Courtney, our other roommate, she said to me the other day, she was like, sometimes things change. And like, you had this plan that you were going to go into grad school single and blah, 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 blah. But now this person makes you really happy. Why not like just like change the plan?
100%.
And I don't want to change the plan because I know how the last one ended.
Right.
And so that's what I'm honestly like struggling with right now, is like,
what is your decision out of hope telling you, not your decision out of fear?
My decision out of hope is that I want to at least try.
Yeah.
I like him so much that it would be devastating to be like, nope, I told myself I was going to be single and I'm going to end this.
Right.
And then I would always be wondering, like, maybe what would have happened if I hadn't ended it. And so again, I'm really trying to like identify my intuition right now. Like, what is it telling me? And in telling him like, hey, I don't want to keep this going because I'm going to school. Like, we need to like end it. Feels wrong.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, all right, we'll just keep going. Yeah. One foot in front of the other.
Exactly. Sometimes with these things, you do have to take it day by day. And I agree with what Courtney said. Like, just because you have this redo and you're seeing the perspective of, okay, I'm not going to repeat history. There's also a different side of it where you have this redo to still do it differently and still stay with him. Like, you have the redo of dating somebody through college, and maybe now you have the difference of, not to pour all of yourself into him. Yes. To make friends. You have this beautiful piece of it where, I mean, obviously it's like not always fun to be long distance, but sometimes it can be in your benefit to where you have all this time to be an individual and be yourself. Like, it's almost like can be the perspective of a redo where you get to do it the way you want to do it this time and still have the relationship.
That's true. And maybe that's where the learning from my mistakes comes in. It's not to never date again.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not to never like go into like
a new have to say no to love.
Exactly. But it's like, okay, so how are you going to do it? I didn't like that I felt isolated. I didn't like that he talked negatively of my friends and my intelligence and my social abilities. Like, I literally did not know I was a social butterfly until like I got here. Like, and now I know that strongly about myself. I had no idea.
I can't believe that.
It's kind of crazy to me too. I'm like, now I'm so like sure of that. But I was like, I don't know. He was like always the life of the party. Like, he told me that like all of his friends love him. Like, it was like blah 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 blah. And so now it's exactly that. Like, okay, I can still be with somebody and make sure that I don't let those things slip away.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure I'm valuing the friendships and I'm valuing, the academics that are important to me and the travel if that's important to me. And it's like it's so important to be yourself in a relationship, because also like if you become the other person and you all have the same interests, that person's, then the like interest and intrigue is going to disappear.
Right.
Like you have to be different enough. Yes. You have to live your own separate lives enough to have something to catch up on.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And I feel like it's so sweet to have that added piece of like totally having him fully support whatever decision that you want to make. And if you make the decision to let him go, it's almost like that thing that people say of like, if you love something, let it go.
Yeah.
If it comes back to you, like, I don't know, what's the rest of that?
It's meant to be.
Yeah. I think it's like,
it's a boomerang. You throw a boomerang and then it comes back.
Yeah. And something to like, if it doesn't come back, it was never yours in the first place,
Yes, this is a saying.
And I think that he fully sees that. And I think he is giving you the space to make the decision, which is just so awesome.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But I do think it's still so important to like always put yourself first.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And that is what I'm still doing that, still going.
Yeah.
So.
And like we've said, no rush. Like take it day by day.
Yeah.
And I think I've told you this, like make the decision on the day of that you have to, if you have to, and like maybe your intuition will be screaming at you at that point,
Well, I think it's a beautiful thing because I never told you guys this, but when I went to tour Stanford, I was on the plane and I started crying.
Aww.
I didn't start crying, but I was very emotional. Yeah. And I was like, this is what it's going to feel like. I'm going to be flying away from all my friends and my life, going somewhere totally unknown. And that was before I met Joe.
Yeah.
Neighbor boy. And now he's actually like driving me up to school. And so it's not even happening. Like the whole way I was so nervous about how it was going to happen. It's not even happening that way. Like I feel like I'm like taking a piece of San Diego with me. Yeah. Like it's not a hard like you're out of here.
Right.
It's like okay, trickle, trickle, trickle.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
love.
Yeah.
Okay, yay.
Okay, yay, we did it.
That was so good.
It was so good.
I guess final notes. Do you have anything that you're, I guess this whole thing is like living delusionally, but do you have any like delulu moments that you want to highlight, or anything you are trying to be delusional about, or anything like that?
Ooh. You might have to cut this.
Okay.
I should have thought about this earlier.
That's okay. We don't have to do one. I don't even know what I would say for
Okay,
it.
I should have thought about this earlier because I know that you asked this.
No, that's okay. That's totally okay. I feel like this whole theme has been like delusional.
Should I talk about the Tyler thing?
You could. You don't have to. I feel like we're good where we're at.
Okay.
Unless you want to.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. Talking about the Tyler thing.
Let's just cut it. I feel like this is a good wrap.
Are you sure? Because did you want the delusional thing to be like
I feel
theme?
like I feel like I touched on it. And I was like, this is something, I don't know what I said. Something about delusion. I said it once in the episode.
Okay, you did. Yes, you did.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Sarah, for joining. I'm so happy you got to do a podcast with me before you go.
Thank you for having me. I
love
love you so much.
Bye.
Okay, bye.